Good morning.
Good morning.
One more time, good morning.
Good morning.
It is a great day in Oneida County. It is a great day in Utica. It is a great day in the Mohawk Valley. And I welcome you all here. I'm Oneida County Executive Anthony Picente, and welcome to all of you to joining me here at SUNY Polytechnic Institute. And before we begin our program today, I would like to acknowledge a few special guests that are with us here today. We have joining us Senator Joseph Griffo.
Yeah, I would.
Senator Dave Valesky. Senator Anthony Bernizzi. Senator Bill McGee. Senator Mark Butler. Chairman of Herkimer County, Jim Bono. Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of SUNY Poly, Dr. Robert Geer. Larry Gilroy, the REDC Co-Chair and President of Gilroy Kernan and Gilroy Insurance. Stephen DeMille, the President of Mohawk Valley. Partners in Government Mayor of the City of Utica, Robert Palmer. Mayor of the City of Rome, Joseph Fusco. A colleague down the block of the region, County Executive of Montgomery County, Maryland. Also honored to have with us Howard Zemsky, the President and CEO of Empire State Development Corporation. And someone who had a vision for this place that is burgeoning every day. We're so proud that she's a commissioner, Commissioner Oneida. Like no other time in our history. It is a growth that surpasses many generations. I am confident and I am proud that this city, this county, and this region are heading towards a brighter future because of where we stand and what this governor has left.
Yeah, I usually widen out.
So without any further ado, and getting right down to business, it is really my pleasure to introduce a great friend, someone who is, I can truly call a personal friend. We work very closely professionally on a variety of issues and have moving this county and state forward. Someone who knows the Mohawk Valley, who comes here frequently, and who understands what it's like and is changing upstate New York for the better. My good friend, please join me in welcoming Governor Andrew Cuomo.
many times. But I can count on one hand how many times we were at events that I believe were truly transformative and historic. And we've done some historic things, some transformative things. But the scope of life is relatively few. This is one of those moments where I believe this is a transformative moment that will make an actual difference in people's lives for the entire Mohawk region for a long, long time. We talked about Capital for a Day, which is where the state government comes to a region and we branch out and we address our specific areas after having consulted with the local officials. The local officials all had the same number one need. County Executive Picente, Mayor Palmieri, Mayor Fusco, County Executive Osmondford, Vince Bono, they all had the same #1 need. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Why? Because if jobs are being created, everything else will take care of itself. If jobs are being created, it means there's opportunity, there's hope, it means young people are going to stay. If jobs are being created, it means people have salaries, they have incomes, they're going to pay taxes, they're going to buy homes, they're going to buy groceries, it's going to run an entire economy. So it's about jobs, that's #1. And it has been #1 for a long time. Now, we're going to take a major step forward in that regard today. But before I get to tomorrow and the future, I want to make sure we talk about yesterday and how we got here. Because understanding how we got here is very important to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes again, right? And some mistakes we did make, and some were just the course of life. And it's not just the Mohawk Valley. You can go across upstate New York. It all has the same basic economic story presently because it has the same economic past. Upstate New York, what made upstate New York was our boom during the manufacturing era. We seized on it, Erie Canal, Albany, Utica, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, all along the Erie Canal, and that's where the goods were traveling for a significant period of time in this nation's history, and we were along that route, and we built cities along that route, and that was our economy. And that worked great for a time. And then the economy changed. No fault of our own. The economic god said, cost of labor is cheaper overseas. A lot of manufacturing started to move overseas. A lot of manufacturing became moot in this country, and the economy started to slow down. And then the question was, what do you do once that economy starts to slow down? And when that economy slowed down, it created a vicious negative synergy. Meaning what? Meaning the job starts to slow down, the economy starts to go down, people start to leave. People start to leave, the tax base starts to dwindle. The tax base starts to dwindle, fewer people now pay more money in taxes. And that then starts to fuel the downward cycle. At the same time, the state government is raising state taxes. And raising state taxes like crazy. And becomes one of the highest tax states in the United States of America. And our attitude was, well, we're in New York, we can charge higher taxes because we're New York. I call it our arrogant phase. People want to live in New York. They won't move. We can raise the taxes. And people were talking about more mobility and businesses were moving and people were moving, but we still believe that whatever we did with taxes, whatever we did with regulations, however difficult we made it, people and businesses will go to still stay in the state of New York. We were wrong. We were wrong. Mistake. Talking this morning about highest property taxes in the United States. Think about that. Highest property taxes in the United States. You know what a young couple is going to do when they go to buy a house? Move. Why? Because people are smart. Highest business taxes in the United States. You know what a business is going to do? Move. Why? Because businesses are smart. Well, there's no place else to go. We're New York. Actually, there are. If you look at a map, you will see to the west of New York these other shapes, squares, rectangles, funny triangles. Those are actually called other states. Now, they may not be as good as New York, but they are habitable places. They have been proven to be habitable. And if you keep raising taxes and you keep raising the regulations, people can go live there. And they did. And that continued to fuel the downward cycle. So now we're losing more people, we're losing more businesses, more taxes for the localities, the people who remain behind, and that's making the situation worse. And we're losing our economic rationale. And we don't really have the capital and the energy to recreate the economy, which, by the way, happens to be a very, very big, tough proposition. Okay, so yesterday you were in the manufacturing business, yesterday was Griffiths, yesterday was GE, they've moved. What are you going to do as a business line in the future? Tough question. Especially when you're competing with so many other regions and cities that are about the same size that were in the same business. And by the way, who's going to provide the capital to help capitalize this new business? Well, government will. State government should. And you're right, the state government should have. But it didn't for a lot of years. Why? Well, state government doesn't care about upstate New York. Only focused on downstate New York. Many people have said that to me. Caring bespeaks a feeling, and I don't like to comment on feelings. Factually, what happened is the New York State government is basically run by the legislature. I like to think I have a little something to do with it, but the legislature is the 800-pound gorilla. The legislature is predominantly from New York City and downstate. Overwhelmingly. We have about 80 members just from New York City. And by the way, those New York City members all have one agenda. New York City. Senate, largest single concentration of senators are from Long Island. And they have one agenda item, Long Island. Right? Every legislator wants to do for his or her district. Well, who represents upstate New York? Who's fighting for the Mohawk Valley? Joe Griffo in the Senate. Very strong. Very good. Joe, Dave Valesky, they're outnumbered 50 to 1. You have Anthony Brindisi in the Assembly. He's outnumbered 100 to 1, Brindisi. So it was very, very difficult to get the kind of attention that upstate needs. That has changed dramatically over the past few years. That has changed dramatically. Why? Because we've insisted that it change dramatically. And the legislators have put their foot down. We've actually organized the upstate legislators as upstate legislators. You know, there is no place called upstate New York. Right? There's Buffalo, there's Rochester, there's Utica. There's no one who says I'm from upstate. And there was no unity among the upstate delegation. So you had all this power and numbers in downstate, and upstate they were all fractured, they were all separate. They understand now that there's something to forming an upstate coalition. I told the legislative leaders straight out, I would not sign a budget unless it has significant economic resources for upstate New York, period. And over the past few years, billions of dollars have gone to upstate New York. Billions of dollars. And over the past few years, we reversed the negative that the state had created. I was going to speak to my friends at General Electric a few weeks ago. It was a social visit, we were just catching up and talking about old times. GE was in the state of New York at one time. GE was here at one time. And they were very, very big. They still have a presence in New York, but they had their headquarters here, and they were one of the big founding companies of New York. And GE, in the mid-70s, said, I'm going to go try one of those other states on the map, that other shape, because New York doesn't get it. And they left. And they went to another state that shall be nameless, and they set up shop. And I went to GE a few weeks ago, and I said, basically, you were right. You were right. I understand why you left. I understand what we did with taxes. I understand what we did with regulations. But we have changed. And we are different than you remember us. And that is true. We cut taxes across the board. We cut income taxes down to the lowest level since the 1950s. Corporate tax down to the lowest level in over 50 years. Manufacturing tax, we brought down to zero. So we fixed the negative that the state had created. We recognized the need for investment in upstate New York. And then there's one other factor in the equation, which is the economic vision of what your business line is going to be. Because regions have business lines. We don't talk about it that way. We don't think about it that way, but that's true. I'll say to a mayor, I'll say to a county executive when I see them just to shake them up a little bit, what business are you in? They say, oh, well, I'm in government. I said, well, I know you're in government. County executive. What business is your county in? Yes, a county is in business. A region is in business. Buffalo made steel. We ran Griffiths Air Force Base. I understand yesterday. What are you doing now and what is the economic future? And not what were you, but what are you and what will you be? And we have to recreate our economic identity and our economic future. That comes from the people in this room. I can't tell you what the future vision for the Mohawk Valley is economically. Only the Mohawk Valley can figure that out. And come up with a vision, come up with a dream, come up with a plan, and then everyone together works towards that plan. And by the way, the Mohawk Valley is going to be a little bit different than the North Country, a little bit different than Western New York, a little bit different from Long Island. We don't have one economy. We have 10 regional economies, each one a little different. Now, to spur that process, which is unique, it's government-private sector partnership on steroids, we have the Upstate Revitalization Initiative competition, $1.5 billion for the regions that come up with the best economic vision, and we will then invest in it. And you've done very well in that competition, and you're developing a beautiful economic vision. We do have one statewide economic vision for upstate New York that is functioning brilliantly in Albany, and some isolated parts of upstate New York, and today is going to come big time to Utica. And that is an economic vision built around nanotechnology. Now, what is nanotechnology? Good question. Nanotechnology started as an economic vision by literally a single professor who was going to SUNY Albany back in the 90s. It was actually attracted to SUNY Albany by a state program that was financing innovations in science. And the state program was run by then the ESD of its time, Empire State Development Corporation. And the governor was a fellow named Mario Cuomo. And they ran the competition, and a professor named Elaine Calleros comes to Empire State Development Corporation 20 years ago and says, I have a vision. I have an economic vision. Nanotechnology. What is nanotechnology? It is the science of reducing the physical dimensions, basically, of computer processing. We had computer boards at one time, and the boards were reduced down, and then they went to chips, and then the chips got smaller, and the smaller you can make them, the more cost effective, the more effective from a utilization point of view.
Thank you.
And how do you make the chip, and what can you put on the chip, and what is the cheapest way to make the chips? That was nanotechnology. I'm sure my father had no idea what he was talking about. But they gave Elaine Calleros a grant. He went to SUNY Albany. He followed his dream. It built, it built, it built. The state then invested in something called clean rooms. What's a clean room? You were in the clean room. A clean room is the room they need to work on these chips and manufacture these chips. They're designed in such a way that there's no particles in the air that can infect, pollute the chip manufacturing process. The brilliance of the state investment was that a clean room can cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build. The state invested billions, literally, in building the clean room. And the state owned the clean room. And then any business that needed to use the clean room had to come to New York and had to use the state's asset. And by the way, they couldn't leave because it was our clean room. And it was a very different economic model. Rather than giving a company money and the company builds and the company invests, the state invested. And we had the asset in the company's team. It has transformed the capital district, the Albany economy. Transformed. Home values have skyrocketed. Not just Albany County. The entire region has been economically transformed. It is amazing. And it is the model. It's higher education, training people in higher education to work in a specialized industry, and that industry in partnership with that university. It has grown so big that it needs to expand. And the site to have it expand was Utica. And then we started making those preparations and talking about it. Now, having a vision, having a dream is nice. That's step one. Step two is do it. And step two is always the hard part. Then you have to build a building, then you have to find the financing, then you have to make it happen. So this was a very long road to get here today. But it started with the building we're in today, Quad C. It then was ambitious enough to envision an advancement, which was Marcy Nano, which is right across the way. And then it was about putting together the initial investment, the initial companies to get it started. Today, in Quad C, we're joined by General Electric. General Electric is going to announce that they are establishing their R&D facility here for studying how the chip application process. It's a total of a $200 million investment. $50 million from the state of New York, $150 million from General Electric. It will create 470 jobs, average salary $91,000. Will be joining companies that have already committed to occupy this building, like ANSI, Tokyo Electronics, Sematech, IBM, total of $1.5 billion investment, which was going to be a total of 1,000 jobs. With GE's announcement today, it'll be 1,470 jobs. Nano, 500-acre site, posed every conceivable challenge known to man. Army Corps of Engineers had to sign off, which is always a treat, dealing with that bureaucracy. If the county executive's hair went gray, that's where it went gray, dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers. But the permits are all done, the building is ready. The anchor tenant, which we are in the final stages of negotiation with, is going to be AMS, which is an Australian chip manufacturer. New York State will invest $200 million. AMS will invest $4 billion. An additional 1,000 jobs, so we're talking about 2,500 jobs right here. Congratulations go truly to the people in this room. A project like this does not happen without a lot of people spending a lot of time making this happen. And County Executive Anthony Picente is right at the top of the list, and let's give him a round of applause. Before she was a state big shot, when she was representing the region, made it a point to say, when she saw the growth in Albany of nanotech, she said, boy, maybe one day it'll get so big that it's going to need more space, and I know where to bring it. And where to bring it was bringing it back home with her to Utica. So Rowan is... Senator Joe Griffo and I have worked together a long time on economic development. We were working together both in different capacities when I was HUD Secretary. That's how long ago we started. But sometimes it's nice to see 20 years of effort finally come home to roost. Senator Joe Griffo, thank you. You have a ferocious advocate in the Assembly who's taken Rowan's seat and is doing a great job. Anthony Brindisi. Now, this does two things for you. First, because I believe we create our own destiny, right? You can have breaks, some of the good, some of the bad. At the end of the day, it's up to you. At the end of the day, it's the person in the mirror who decides your future and your fate. Nobody else. What this does is not just 2,500 jobs. It's not just about 2 buildings. It provides you an economic engine that can drive an entire economy. You build from this. These companies will develop all sorts of offshoots. There's going to be all sorts of companies that want to do business with these companies. You have the beginning of an economic revolution here, but you have to stoke those flames. You have to work with it. You have to partner it. What else can we do, GE? What else do you need? What other division maybe that you could bring here? So this is not in and of itself an economic revolution, but it is the beginning of an economic revolution. And it is here for you now. And all those years of trying to put it together and trying to make it happen, you did it. You did it. Not the state, not the governor, not anybody else. You did it yourself. You were committed to these. Besides having an economic future and an economic engine, you gave people hope again. One of the last times I was here, I was talking to a young fellow who had a kind of sour look on his face. And I said to him as I was walking out, I said, so why the long face? He said, you know, I've heard it all before, seen it all before. You're just another politician with another speech and another plan. I said, really? I used to have a temper when I was young. But now I'm too old, so I don't ride the debate as much. Once in a while. But I couldn't blame him for that attitude, right? We have been in a bad place in upstate New York for 30, 40, 50 years. Some places we're on the second, third generation of decline. And maybe this, I have an idea, I have a hope. Yeah, but now it came true. And it is up to you to communicate the future is here. And it is happening. I know it was a long wait. I know there were a lot of gray days. But that was yesterday and this is today. And look at what tomorrow can be. And we stuck it out and we stayed with the region. And by the way, we have every asset that you could need. We needed that spark. We needed that energy. We needed GE. We needed AMS. We needed someone to understand who we were. But any asset God could give a region, He gave us. The best schools in the United States of America, the most beautiful landscape, the most beautiful history, any recreation you want, you can do right here in the state, and the taxes are down, and the business environment is down, and you have all of that in one place. You can't find another state in this nation that has what we have. I've worked in every state in the United States. And the last piece we have, and the piece that makes all the difference in the world, is the people. We have New Yorkers. And you showed your grit, you showed your stamina, and you showed your heart when you lived through those bad days, and you worked for a better tomorrow, and the better tomorrow is here today. You deserve it. It's yours. You've only started. This is the first spark. Those flames, we're going to have an economic fire, and this region is not just going to be what it was. It is going to be better and bigger and stronger than it's ever been. Thank you, God bless.